Hello and welcome to my chat with New York Times bestselling author Nancy Thayer. I am so excited that she was able to join us this afternoon. Hello, Nancy.
Hi, Brenda. Hi, everybody.
We were just remarking how crazy it is that she's clear on the other side of the country. So isn't it nice that technology enables us, me being clear on this coast and Nancy being on the opposite coast, we can still get together and be able to ask all the fabulous questions that you submitted in order to help us get to know her better. I know a lot of the questions revolved around how Nancy and I met, and we have never met in person. This is our first time seeing each other, even on the screen, but we have corresponded because Nancy was lovely enough to read an early copy of the Bookstore on the Beach, which will be out in April 6th. And she gave me a lovely quote for the cover. So I posted about that once, but they just got it up on the cover. So I'm excited to actually show, the final cover. So thank you for doing that, Nancy.
Thank you for sending it to me. I have it right here. I'm going to show it because I love it. The Bookstore on the Beach. And I've got to tell you, I know when a book is really good, if it makes me want to go write a book, and I can't put it down. I'm like, I need to go write a book. Oh, wait a minute, what happens next? I love this book. It's wonderful, and it's heartwarming and complicated, very complicated.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I love yours too. And everybody, Nancy has the mass market version of Let It Snow out. I think it came out yesterday. And so it's a reissue. The original was in hardcover, but if you haven't read this book yet, it's now out in mass market. So you need to rush out and grab it. I love Nancy's books. They're about relationships, and there's a lot of nuance, and often there is some animals and pets in them. And so I think that you guys are going to love her work. So this is such a beautiful cover too, Nancy. Did you have much input on this cover?
Well, I did on the original cover in the hardback. But the thing I love about this, and I'm going to just put it out there because I really love it, is that it's what they call a mass market paperback, which means it's only $7.99, which means you can find it in your grocery store, in Sam's Club, in Walmart, in the pharmacy. And I feel like it makes this much more available to many more readers who don't want to pay for a hardback book. They're getting so expensive, I know. And I also like this because I think it would be a perfect little stocking stuffer. You could just stick it right in someone's stocking. Yeah, as your books would.
Yeah, that's great. So Nancy, tell us a little bit about what this book is about and how you got the idea for it.
I got the idea because I live on Nantucket, which is an island, totally surrounded by water, 30 miles from the mainland, from Massachusetts. And the only way you can get to and from the island are either by a plane, which costs $1 zillion, or you can take a fast ferry, which is great. It only takes an hour, or you can take the slow boat. But the fast ferry, the High Line, is on one of the wharfs that sticks out into the harbor. And there are these sheds that used to be fishermen's sheds. And they were just like very small one-room cottages. And it's where the fishermen used to dry their ropes and their fish and whatever else they did. And now they're very chic shops. So you can buy a gorgeous t-shirt, a work of art, jewelry, and you can get your High Line tickets. And there was a store there called the Toy Boat. And it's not there any longer, and I really miss it because it was a very small one-room building, and I used to go in there all the time because it was quaint. And Nantucket is quaint. We're getting kind of chic, but this store was quaint. And I was in this store, and the book just came to me. I came home and I started writing, and it was just all here. And it's about, it's about Christina Antonioni, who owns the toy shop, which is not the name of the real woman who owned it. And at the beginning of the book, she sees a little girl about 7 years old, 8 years old, coming into the shop and stealing something. And Christina confronts her, and the little girl's name is Wink. And it turns out that she's there living with her mother, who's getting divorced and who's living with Wink's grandfather, who is a perfect Scrooge. He's a real grouch. And of course, the mother happens to have this very handsome brother who is Wink's uncle, and things sort of evolved from there. But it's all about the magic of Christmas, not just on Nantucket, but especially on Nantucket, because on Nantucket, Santa Claus arrives on a Coast Guard boat, and it's magical. I love it. That everybody stands out on the wharf, and the big Coast Guard cutter comes in, and all the Coast Guardians have their red and white striped mufflers on, and Santa is there, and Mrs. Santa Claus is there. It's magical. And then we have something called the Christmas stroll, and I think I've written about that 4 or 5 times, because I love December, I love Christmas, and I love the stroll. And that's the beginning of this book.
Yeah, it's charming. I mean, most about your work is this, it has such a strong sense of place. I mean, Wink is a great character, and the whole Christmas thing really is very charming, but that strong sense of place runs throughout. And I think it's so great that you write about a place that you know so well. I mean, do you ever get tired of the Nantucket as a location? Are you tempted to go farther, or just happy sticking with this charming island?
Well, I grew up in Kansas, and my sister lives in Kansas City with her family. So I get to go back to Kansas City. That's where I went to university. And I get to go back there often. And I used to go off every summer with a friend or with my husband and travel to, I don't know, take a cruise down the Danube, that sort of fabulous thing. And I also used to go to Boston a lot, where I have friends. But this year, I haven't been off the island for 7 months, which is so crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for things like technology.
Yes. Do you have many COVID cases on Nantucket, or have you been able to sort of keep the island a safe haven?
It has been a safe haven, except that we are a resort island. So in the winter, we have maybe 20,000 people. And in the summer, we have 50 or 60,000 people. And after the summer, our numbers shot up.
Oh.
But it was still like 0.1%. You know, it's not huge. It's not a city. So we have been fairly lucky. Yeah.
I am dying to see it because of what you've introduced in your books. It's really created a thirst for me to see Nantucket. And so maybe I'm hoping that this coronavirus thing will settle down and we will be able to come and visit you, to interview you when we feature you in my online book group in May. So normally we travel to visit the featured authors and do an in-person interview. It's a little more fun to kind of take the group to the author's home, so to speak. But you know, hopefully, if not, we'll do something like this, but hopefully we'll be able to get together in person and I'll get to see the island. Now, you have known Debbie for a number of years. Is that right? Why don't you tell us how you got to know Debbie?
I don't think I've ever met Debbie.
Oh,
I have to go back and say, oh, please come. And if you come, you'll have to speak at our library. We can speak together. We can do signings at our, oh, this is so exciting. This gives me something to really hope for, Brenda. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
I would love it. Before COVID started, we were able to go and visit Peter James in England, and Sandra Brown in Texas, and Robin Carr in Vegas. And so we've been all over, and it's been so fun to get to know my favorite authors better. So we're super excited at the prospect that we might get to come and visit you and see your beloved island. And now let's get some of these questions that everybody else submitted for you, because I don't want to leave them out. I could talk to you all day. But first I wanted to thank you for the videos you did for Jingle All the Way and for A California Christmas. That was so fun. I really appreciate that. You did a great job with it. Okay, so how did you first get your start in writing?
Probably when I was in 6th grade, and I wrote stories, and my 6th grade teacher had me read them on Friday afternoon just before school got out. I always wanted to write. I always thought that was the only thing anybody would ever, why would anybody want to do something else? And so I wrote, and I got a degree in literature, and I wrote, but then I got married to the wrong guy. I call him the bad first husband.
Oh.
And now I'm with the good husband. So for a while in my 20s, I was fortunately, we traveled. He was a professor. We lived in Paris. We lived in Amsterdam. And I wrote and I read, and I was also a stepmother. And because I married my college professor, who was 16 years older than I was. I thought I was 20 when I married him, and I thought it was fun and glamorous, and I was an idiot. But I immediately had 2 darling stepdaughters, and I really came to love them. I know they loved me. And they inspired my first novel, Stepping, which was about being a stepmother. And it came out in 1980, and that's before Oprah Winfrey and before Phil Donahue. And it was a very popular book because there are a lot of people who are step-parents out there. There are a lot of people who are stepchildren.
Yeah. And being a good step-parent is so important. And I mean, I can just tell by your genuine kindness that you were probably excellent at it.
I think I was, at least, if I wasn't excellent, because I've never been a great cook, but, but I had fun with them. I loved them. They were, we did crazy things. We went to drive-ins and watched scary movies until 4 in the morning and ate popcorn. And then we took them to Amsterdam, and I tutored them one semester. And we walked all around Amsterdam together. They were my friends much more than my children.
How old were they when you married their father?
They were 11 and 9.
Oh, great ages. They're still very open to adults, and yet they're able to do a lot on their own. That's a fun age.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
So when I wrote Stepping, and I have to say, before that I had short stories published in literary journals, which is what people used to do. And now they publish them online, I think.
Yeah. You know, I used to read those stories in Good Housekeeping. I know that your book has been, that some of your work has been featured in Good Housekeeping. And I'm so sad that that's no longer a thing, because I remember every time I would go to my sister's house, because she had a subscription, looking for that story. I didn't look at anything else. I would just look for the story. So it's neat that you were featured in there.
I was so happy. And Red Book magazine, I don't know if anybody remembers Red Book.
Yeah, I do.
My mother always took it, and when it came in the mail, she would say, "I'm going to see you later." She'd go in her bedroom and shut the door. We didn't see her for like 3 or 4 hours and I thought, if I could only get published in Red Book, that will be the most wonderful thing in the world.
For sure.
They condensed my first novel as a condensed novel in Red Book, and that was wonderful.
Yeah, I think they should do that again. I think I'm missing that feel. I mean, that's why we did a magazine with this latest Brenda Novak book box we did. I wrote a story for it and actually put it in a magazine. I think it's because I didn't have the opportunity, like you, to do that. And as a child, I aspired well, I liked them. I never knew I was going to be a writer. I caught my daycare provider drugging my children with cough syrup and Tylenol to get them to sleep while I worked as a loan officer. So I quit my job and stayed home with them and had to come up with something to do at home that could help support the family. And that's really the first time I ever even considered being a writer. So we actually came at it from different angles, but I do remember those stories and how much I enjoyed them. And so once I did get published, I thought, oh, I wish that they still had that.
You are such a natural writer, and you are so good with your plots and your characters. And I can hardly put A California Christmas down.
Oh, good.
That is, well, that's a fascinating beginning, let me tell you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So why don't you tell everybody, I know you have quite a few books out. I won't give away how many. Why don't you tell them how many that you've written since that first book that included being a stepmother?
Well, I've published 33 books, 33, and that was over 40 years. So there were some years when it wasn't so much fun because I didn't like my editor. But in the past 10 years, I've been with a really, really good editor. It's not that I didn't like my editor, it was a whole publishing, the way publishing was changed, changing.
It has definitely been through some really wild changes, especially in the past 10 years. And I know that it's tough to make the adjustments too when you get used to things being a certain way.
Right. And agents have changed. And one of the wonderful things that's changed is that now we have Facebook and we have Instagram and we have Twitter. And I love Facebook because I can see my readers and I know what they're doing, and I love animals, so I see their dogs and their cats. And today, as you know, this week, Facebook has been, I don't know what they're doing, but they say they're making a new page or something.
Yeah, they're always tinkering, and sometimes it works out great, other times not so great. That's for sure.
So I'm not thrilled about Facebook, but I also get email, and I also have a website, which is nancythayer.com, and that has a lot of information, and it has a place to sign up for a newsletter, which I love writing. I like the interaction with my readers. It helps me know who they are, what they like, what they care about. And I think you're that way too.
Definitely. I mean, this is the first time really in history, the past few years since Facebook became as big as it is, that we can interact directly. Before, you had letters and email, but it wasn't quite as immediate as Facebook. And so it's been really fun to start some of these new things like this group with Debbie. I was so excited that Debbie wanted to do this. We have so many fun things planned. I mean, guest authors like you, but all kinds of fun things coming up. And so it's just one of those things that enables us to get a break too from this whole COVID thing, because at least we can still do online things, which is, so nice. We're having a Halloween party tonight that's going to be virtual for my book group. And I mean, without Facebook, it would be really, really difficult to do that. So I too am really grateful for some of the changes, and others have been somewhat of a challenge. Denise Shayer wants to know, she would love to hear about your favorite holiday tradition. So I know you mentioned that you like December and Christmas. Is that your favorite?
Yes, it is. I love Christmas. I have always loved Christmas. And we always used to have a Christmas Eve party here on the island.
Oh, that would be fun.
And this is when my children were younger, and their friends would come, and my friends would come, and Charlie's friends would come, and we would just have a lot of food. And I always made something that somebody taught me called a German bowl. And I think I'll put the recipe on my website.
Oh, we love that. How nice.
I'll tell you what it is. It's 3 bottles of Liebfraumlich, which is a white German wine, and a bottle of champagne, and peaches, frozen peaches soaked in brandy overnight.
Oh my goodness.
It's delicious. It's cold. It has this taste of fruit, and you feel really good after you.
I see why that would be a hit at a Christmas party. So will you be dressing up for Halloween, or is everything all about Christmas?
I used to have Halloween parties too.
Oh my goodness.
I did. I always had. But when your children are little, it's more fun. I mean, it would be kind of weird if I went out trick-or-treating now, especially with COVID. But with my children, we always had costumes, and Charlie and I had costumes, and there would be parties on the island for the little kids, and then parties later for the big kids, for the grown-ups. I love Halloween. I haven't. Well, we don't have trick or treat on the island anymore. What we do is on Saturday we have a huge Halloween parade, and everybody dresses up for Halloween, and it's so much fun because the costumes can be just crazy and inventive, and that's fun.
Yeah, my daughter is the one in our family. I have one daughter of my 5 kids who really goes out for Halloween, and she'll start planning her costumes, months in advance. And there's always a theme, for the whole family. She has 2 kids now, so it's really cute to see them show up at our door as, like Snow White, and then the whole entourage of that, or it could be Wizard of Oz, could be the theme, or anyway, super, super cute. I haven't been dressing up lately, but I'm dressing up tonight for our party. So that'll be fun to do, because in COVID, I feel like we've lost so much. We're bringing back as much as we can.
Can you say what you're going to be?
Pardon?
Can you say what you're going to be?
Yes, I'm going to be a flapper.
Oh, wonderful. I could see you that way. I could definitely, absolutely. Are you going to have yes, you're going to be fabulous.
Yeah, it's just online, but we're still dressing up anyway, having a costume party. So I'll dress up too. I can't just ask everybody else to and not do it myself. So do you also decorate for Christmas?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes, everybody does. And I think, well, not everybody, but most people do, because it's very dark here. And we're an island, and around December it starts getting gale force winds, and sometimes the boats can't get over. And it's a good time to have lights and parties, and we have something called the Christmas stroll, which is, I include that, as I said, I include that in many of my books.
Yeah.
Weekend event, and more parties.
Tell everybody what the Christmas stroll is, just so they all know.
The Christmas stroll is a weekend when the whole town is devoted to celebrating Christmas. And as I said, Santa Claus comes. Oh, I guess I told you, and I haven't told everybody else. What happens on Saturday is that Santa Claus and his wife are brought to the island on a Coast Guard cutter. And all the coasties are wearing their red and white striped mufflers, and lots of people are gathered on the pier waiting and waving at Santa, and he gets off, and there is a horse-drawn carriage that takes him to the Jared Coffin House, which is a huge brick hotel about 3 blocks away. And then he gives out presents. A lot of the merchants have their doors open, and they have things like hot buttered rum or spice cider or water. They're not. It's not all.
I love wassail. Wassail is my favorite thing, with the hot spice.
Right. Yeah.
And the cloves and stuff in the apple juice. I just love that one.
Yeah. And somebody usually does a reading of a child's Christmas in Wales. And there are plays, and there are Victorian carolers dressed in these beautiful Victorian costumes who walk up and down the street singing. And the town, which is very, very small, our town is, the main part of town is basically a grid, like a tic-tac-toe of 4 main streets. But they all have little Christmas trees, not any taller than I am, and I'm 5'4", and they're all decorated with lights, and all of the children and most of the charitable organizations make decorations for the trees that are capable of lasting through the December storms, when like we'll get a gale force wind on December 12th or something. So the stroll is really a celebration. And then
sounds wonderful. I would love to see it. So you don't get snow on Nantucket, do you?
we do sometimes. Sometimes we don't get any. Sometimes we've had times when we've had snow and it's been so cold.
You weren't stretching it. You weren't stretching it here.
No, the harbor has been frozen over. We have pictures of it. If the harbor is frozen over, that means the ships with the groceries can't get in. And so one winter we actually had to have milk and bread flown over by helicopter. Yeah. So yes.
So what do you do? Do you have good stores just in case this happens? Everybody goes into winter planning for this possibility?
Yeah. Right. Candles and canned foods. Yes, just in case.
Gotta have both of those. Vicki Wright wants to say, she says, Nancy, we have a good bit in common. I'm from Wichita, Kansas too. My sister and I were born in Newton and lived our grade school years in Wichita, then the rest of our school years in Topeka. I'll ask you the same thing everyone asks me. How did you end up in Nantucket from Kansas? I ended up in Cleveland, Ohio.
How do you spell her last name?
It is Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T, Vicki Boylan Wright.
Wright is my maiden name.
Oh my goodness.
Weird. I am Nancy Wright, or I was.
Spelled the same way?
I grew up in Wichita. I was born in Emporia. Vicki, you have to email me. We have to talk about this because I grew up in Wichita. I'm probably older than Vicki, but maybe my father was an only child. The way I got to Nantucket from Wichita was, as I said, I married the wrong man and we traveled a lot and we ended up in Massachusetts and we got divorced and I was a single mother for 5 years with littles and my first husband wasn't interested, he was off. And I came to Nantucket to visit a friend and I met this man, Charlie, and we've been married for 36 years. So it was incredible. I didn't even care about the island when I met him. I was just like, if you want to live on an island, I didn't care, but he loves the island and I do too.
Yeah. So, we've been married the same number of years, Nancy. We've been married 36 years too.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So is he a native of Nantucket or had he moved there?
He'd moved there. He's a native of Boston and they used to summer down here.
Oh.
And so he ended up because he was fascinated by music. And so he worked for a record store here way back when people played records, which are now called vinyl. And he had a record store and he had it for about, I don't know, 30 years maybe.
Wow.
And it was in the basement of a building. And I remember saying, in the basement. But the thing is, as I said, downtown Nantucket is a very small historic area with a lot of brick buildings. And we have what is called English basements. There are windows in the basement. You can walk out onto the street from the basement. So he wasn't really in a pit, although I found it was very crowded with records, which is the way that music lovers tend to be, just like book lovers.
Oh yeah, I've seen those bookstores that are just like that. I understand what you mean. Well, Sarah Lenhart wanted to know, she said, Ellen Hildebrandt also lives on Nantucket. Do you live near each other? Are you friends?
we are friends. I don't see her often. She's a lot younger than I am. I could be her mother. I think she's about 50. She also has a place in Boston, and she spends the winter on St. John's down in the Bahamas, because she's a real sun goddess. She loves the hot weather. And I see her. Well, the last time I saw her was at a Christmas party, and I'll see her occasionally at the bookstore. I've met her boyfriend, who's very cute, very tall. But there are quite a few good writers who live on the island. And for example, Nat Philbrick, who is a nonfiction writer, who wrote Into the Heart of the Sea, which was made into a movie. Nat lives about a block from us, and we've known each other, Nat and Melissa, for a long time. Okay. They're a wonderful children's writer. Well, not children.
That's when Chris Hemsworth starred in Into the Heart of the Sea. I think it was Chris Hemsworth, wasn't it?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good show.
Yeah, it was. Yes, it was. It was a good movie.
Yeah.
And it was based on Moby Dick, which nobody ever wants to read. I'm sorry, Nat, but
you hear about it all the time, which is so funny. It's probably the most alluded to book, like Captain Ahab and his passion. And it's interesting because you're right, Moby Dick is pretty long and detailed.
It is, yeah.
Nancy Anderson says, welcome, Nancy. I have read a few of your books and have more on my to-be-read pile. What do you do when you have those wins or during winter when no one can come or go? You've pretty much answered that. I think you have to fly stuff in, right?
We fly stuff in. We are prepared. Winter is really a delicious time on the island because we get together with friends. We have candlelight dinners. We sit and talk for a long time. There's no hurry because there's nowhere to go. But we also, and I think this is true of most people on this island, we love winter storms. We love to go out when there is a storm that's making the waves crash. And we go out to the South Shore where the Atlantic Ocean is just flying in. And that's the only time we get what the British call white horses, which are these huge white waves that surge. And everybody's out there just happy. And I think it's like a drug. It's like ions of energy that we get. And mothers dance with their children on the beach. I mean, with the littlies. It's so...
Sounds wonderful. It's definitely on my bucket list for sure.
Winter is a very different and wonderful time here.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds very different. The seasons have their role.
That's true. That's true.
Tammy Wright wants to know, another Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T. This is Tammy. Says, what is your favorite way to celebrate a book release?
Well, let's see. I have to think back to before 2020. Usually I go down to Mitchell's Bookstore, which is a 5-minute walk from our house, and we have a party. And we have a book release party, and friends come and buy books, and we all have some champagne or Prosecco, which is what I really like. And it's very special to do that because usually my books come out in May, around May and June. So there are a lot of summer people who come, who have homes here, and who come for Christmas. So I've seen them at Christmas, but they're here now in May, and they come too. So it's a reuniting with old friends that we haven't seen for 6 months. And then sometimes we have a party at the house. We have it this year. But
so do you write all year long to finish your book, or do you maybe fit it into 4 or 6 months and then have a little bit of time off to recharge for the next one?
I used to take some time off because I used to write a book every year and a half, which was not quite as pressured as it is to write one book a year. And you write 3 books a year. I don't know how you do it, Brenda. It's amazing.
Well, definitely constantly juggling.
I write sometimes a book and a half. If I've not a book and a half, 2 books, but a small Christmas book. So I've written 3 Christmas books, and so that makes for a very busy writing schedule. But I love what I do. I'm lucky to do what I do.
And you have the most gorgeous covers, Nancy. I think your covers are probably some of my favorites. Just the whole look of them. I was very excited when they did Bookstore on the Beach in a similar vein, because I always love your covers. Well, I love the book itself too. They represent it well with the packaging.
Wait a minute, which way am I going? There we go. Yeah, you're right. That is like a lot of my covers.
Yeah, so similar.
And the girl with the, this is how we all dream of living, right?
Right.
Near the beach, but we can go get a book and sit on the beach and read. Yeah.
Yep. So Debbie Brown wants to know, do you always include pets in your books? Do you have pets?
Yes. I don't always include them in my books, but in my family, when I grew up, we always had a lot of animals, like dogs and cats and maybe a bird. My husband loves animals. We've always had a dog and cat, or 2 cats. And now we just have 1 cat who's a rescue cat. And when I wrote my first 2 Christmas books, the first one, which was called A Nantucket Christmas, started off with a little dog named Slicks, who was abandoned out in the middle of the island by some people who had brought him for the summer, and then they decided they were going to be too busy. So they left the island, and people do this. They just take their animals out and drop them in the middle of the island. So A Nantucket Christmas is about a dog who finds a family and a family who finds a dog. Sure. And many people wrote to me and said, well, you have a dog in your Christmas book. You need to have a cat. So I wrote Island Christmas, and it had a cat in it. Well, there were also people. There are always people in my books. And the cat was named Rex, and as in Rex the house. So it's about a wedding. It's about a family. But to me, I can't imagine not having a pet. I feel like they're a certain spirit, a soul that sort of is part of life.
Yeah, I've actually done studies where children who are raised with pets are typically happier children, which I find really interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
I have to tell my children that.
Yeah, that's actually the science. Lisa Wetzel, this will be our last question. Lisa Wetzel says, have any of your real life experiences made it into your books?
A lot of them have, yes. Especially when my children were little. I just shamelessly used the sort of things they did. They didn't know. As they got older, as they became teenagers, I didn't use them. But I've used a lot of real life experiences. Most of my last 10 or 12 books have been set on Nantucket, but I would never use anyone from Nantucket. Nobody is ever exactly like anybody from Nantucket, because I just don't want to do that, but they might inspire. Stepping actually was very autobiographical because I was a stepmother. Let It Snow is kind of autobiographical because it's not about me, but it's about the world I live in, the people that I know, the church pageants and the stroll, and last year I published a book called Surfside Sisters, which was about two girls who were best friends who wanted to grow up and be writers. So I used a lot of my, if not what I did, a lot of what I felt in that.
Which when you feel those passions, it really comes through in your writing, which is nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Well, gosh, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, it was so nice of you to take your time out of the day to come and visit with us and answer our questions. And everybody, I hope you will give Let It Snow a try. It's as great as all of Nancy's other books. So you'll be in for a treat. Definitely add it to your holiday to be read pile if you haven't already. And Nancy, thank you so much again for endorsing the Bookstore on the Beach, for taking your time with us, and for being our featured author this week.
Well, thank you, Brenda, and thank everybody for being flexible enough to do a Zoom, because we couldn't have done a Q&A on Facebook. And you guys are wonderful. It's so nice to be invited. I feel like we've got to get together, Brenda.
Let's do. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. We're hoping for next May.
Good.
All right. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.